Hello pen people. This is going to be a longer video today because I'm going to be talking about a whole pen company, Wahl Eversharp, and there's a lot to say about it, but I'm mostly just going to talk about the pens that I have on hand. There's a lot more that I'm not going to mention, so if there's a particular model or piece of information that I miss, I'm sorry, I'm just going to go with what I have. And I'm not an expert, I'm just somebody who likes the pens. So today I'm talking about Wahl Eversharp. Now, Wahl Eversharp began back in 1905 as the Wahl Adding Machine Company in Illinois. And in 1915, it seriously got into the fountain pen and pencil and other writing instruments arena when it bought out the Eversharp Company, which the propelling pencil that Eversharp invented, or the founder of Eversharp Company invented, was in 1913. And by somewhere in 1916, 1917, Wahl started adopting the Wahl Eversharp combination name. Well, I think that probably happened gradually. I'm not sure exactly when that happened. But anyway, I have a pen here this is just a standard Wahl pen. And you can see there it just says Wahl Pen on it. It's got the iconic roller clip here. It is a chased hard rubber pen, and it is a lever fill. One of the things that is really nice about a lot of these early Wahl pens, and I'm sorry about the pain on my hand, that's just one of the things that happens here. You can see the nib there. It says Wahl number 3, 14 karat, and it is a nice and flexible nib. It's a nice writer. Ebonite feet, of course, ebonite section. The whole pen is primarily ebonite. These pens were made from 1921 to roughly 1928, and by somewhere in 1927, Wahl was making enough pens that they surpassed Conklin as one of the big four. And when we talk about the big four, we're talking about Waterman, Parker, Schaefer, and then it was Conklin. But then with Wahl, Wahl became number 4 in 1927. By 1940, the company changed its name to Eversharp Incorporated, and with Henry Dreyfuss, the Skyline was designed. Actually, let's talk about the Doric first because it came out earlier. In 1931, a new pen was released by Wahl, and it is the Doric. Now, these are second-gen Dorics, and I also have a Doric desk pen. The Doric is known specifically by its 12-sided barrel and cap. They come to a point on each end, beautifully made. They're made out of celluloid with beautiful pierced bands. There are lever fillers, and there are also vacuum fillers like this one. And with the Doric, they came out with a lot of really interesting new features, like a shutoff valve. Now, this one doesn't have the shutoff valve, but it does have the adjustable nib, which is another innovation. This is a number, it doesn't want to focus there, sorry. A number 6 adjustable nib. And what you can do by sliding this little retainer up and down, it tightens up the tip of the nib, and when you move it all the way into the back, and you have to do it gently because you'll break it. Anyway, when you move it all to the back, it loosens up the nib and it becomes very flexible. And if you move it forward to the tip, it becomes harder. So from manifold to flexible, very interesting. This is another one pen with a number 6. This one has, though, the thing I was mentioning is the shutoff valve. So when you tighten the cap down, the cap would press on this lever, and it would shut off a valve in this section that would not allow the ink to flow through anymore. And the ink then would not, even if you tipped the pen upside down, the ink would not flow into the cap and get ink all over your hands when you opened it. So that was kind of an interesting innovation. They stopped doing that after a lawsuit in 1938 or 39, which was roughly about the time that the Doric ended. But the early Dorics had problems. If you're looking for one of these to buy, they tended to have celluloids that would rot as we call it, celluloid rot or cancer or whatever you want to call it. Basically, the celluloid begins to decompose. And later ones, the second generation, in roughly 1935-36, started using a shell, what they called a shell celluloid. You can see this kind of striated look in it. Very beautiful. I love these. This is the blue shell. See there? And then this one's just a solid black. And the shell celluloids are much more stable. They are much less likely to have the rot and the decomposition that the others do. And like I said, this one's a vac filler, kind of like the Schaefer's at the time. This one is a derelict pen. I don't know that I'll ever get it working again. Somehow it got burnt here in the barrel. And so it's not in great shape. I've never used it for ink. I'll see what I can do about it. But these other two work. They're both lever fillers. This blue one, and they also have the gold, the little seal right there. And that was Wahl's version of a seal that showed that this was a pen that had a lifetime warranty. And then you can see the cap, which is very nice design there. This is made in the USA. And the markings of the pen were on the cap where it said Wahl Eversharp, made in USA. And there tended to be nothing, at least on the ones I've seen, on the barrel itself. Although it is a beautiful barrel. And then this one, the same deal. It's just a slightly smaller pen. And they put the seal below the clip on this one. But then there's that beautiful cap band with the piercing in it, and that shows the celluloid underneath. Now, there's a debate on whether or not Omas came out with a similar design at the same time or before it, with what Omas called the Paragon. It's also a 12-sided pen that has a similar look to it. It's not exactly the same. These Wahl Eversharps have kind of like a wasp waist here. When you unscrew the cap, you see how it kind of narrows here after. See, so it's 12-sided, and then it goes completely round here. And that's slightly different from the Omas version. The other thing that Eversharp did that was new at the time was to have a viewport in the barrel where you could see the amount of ink in it, but this one is so ambered that it just doesn't do that anymore. And like I said, these are lever fillers. You would open the lever and put it in the ink and then let it go, and it would fill with ink. And like I say, both of these are lever fillers, and I prefer the lever fillers just because they're easier to repair and not as likely to go out of service because of that, because you can easily repair them. And case in point, this is my desk pen. It came to me like this, beautiful Doric base with the 12 sides on it, and that gorgeous celluloid with another cap band around it. But, you know, of course, it's the base band. I don't know what you'd call that. But it now has a new sack on it, and the sack has been drying. Let me pull this out. You can see it here. And it has an ebonite section, which is much nicer to hold. They're nicer than the celluloid sections. Nice gold nib and a new sack there. And before you install the sack, you always need to put some talc on it. This is the talc from Anderson pens, and it's not the easiest to use. It's kind of a weird setup. Just get some in there. You want to put talc on the sack so that it doesn't adhere to the inside of the barrel of the pen. So I like to get a nice coating on there. There we go. And it should stick fairly readily to the latex of the sack. And then they're friction fit, so you just slide it in. And I like to get the nib aligned with the lever. So we'll go ahead and sight down this here. Make sure they're in phase with each other. Right about there. And then just kind of push it together without cranking it either way, because you might crack the barrel here. Get this talc off my paper here. And then because this is a desk pen, it has this aluminum insert in the end, this threaded aluminum insert, and so you just screw the taper onto it. And you get this rather nice, large, beautiful desk pen. And just again to put it next to its kind of stable mate there. The other green one, and you can see there's a slight difference here. This one's more olive than that one. I think it's because this one was out in the light more, because up here where under the cap, it matches the olive color of this one. And then, of course, this blue one, which you saw earlier. Beautiful pens, gorgeous. If you want to collect them, make sure you're looking for one that doesn't have rot. The celluloid rot shows at the end of the base, at the end of the barrel, or the top of the cap. Usually, that's where the first place you'll see it. None of the ones I have here have it. So I can't really show you an example of what the rot looks like. So that is the Doric. Now, the other pen that Wahl Eversharp is really well known for is the Skyline. In fact, the Skyline was the pen that they sold the most of. And this one was designed by, I believe his name was Harry Dreyfus, who was an industrial designer known for modern, like, deco. Anyway, this pen came out in 1940, and you can see here are several versions of it. They were in production long enough that it was made in different materials. I don't know what sorts of plastics they used. I do know that they had celluloid, and this is the moire celluloid, which is gorgeous, as you can see. It's got this very fine line through it and kind of a wavy pattern. It's beautiful. Green moire in the cap, the derby they call it here, under the funky cap and clip bands there, is a dark green. The section is also ebonite. All 14 karat gold nibs. These are all lever fillers. Here's a red one. This is a dark burgundy, rather. Nice big 14 karat nib. And this is a slightly cheaper version. It's the debutante, or I don't know what they called it, but it's the junior. It's a slightly smaller pen, you can see there. And the nib, therefore, is slightly smaller as well. You want to compare the two. You can see there's a significant difference in the nib size. Well, maybe it doesn't seem so significant, but there is a difference. And one of the things, if you're going to collect these, you have to know that the caps tend to fall apart. The cap barrel here tends to unthread from the derby. There's a threaded liner inside of there that it tends to come undone from. And barrels crack like crazy, and I think it's not because of the design, but more because of the materials they started using. I don't know if they were injection molded. I don't know what they were, but I had one of these that literally just crumbled in my hands. This is a replacement barrel. I found one that fit this pen because it had cracks running from here and then all down the length of the barrel. Just for some reason, the colored ones, like the reds, tend to crack more often. Maybe the browns too, I don't know, but I've had brown ones and red ones and black ones and blue ones, and the ones that were all cracked were the reds and some of the browns. So just be aware of that. But if you're able to get your hands on one, there's something that's just fantastic about them. It's just the shape of them, where it goes to this nice taper, and then it tapers a little bit through here too, and then the shape of that section just makes for an incredibly comfortable pen. And the cap posts so deeply that it makes a very beautiful, balanced pen, and it's no wonder they sold a ton of these pens. They're not just beautiful and comfortable, but they're great performers too. Those ebonite feeds and the beautiful 14 karat nibs just do a beautiful job. And the nibs came in all different sorts and styles. They had what they called the personal point, where it was similar to Esterbrook, where you could unscrew the nib unit from the pen and then screw in the one of your choice. Stubs and flexibles and manifolds and all kinds of different nibs. And let's see, I also have some derelict ones. These are ones, so I will buy a box of broken pens, and then these are a bunch of ones that this is a blue one right here, and somebody super glued the cap to the derby. This is a slightly cheaper version that doesn't have the part of the cap that goes over the top, the part of the clip that doesn't go over the top there. It's just a cheaper version. These, it's obviously missing the section and stuff. I don't think any of these are complete. Yeah. but you know, I've scavenged parts to be able to make the 4 that I have that are together and working well. Now, this is another pen that oftentimes is spoken with when talking about the Doric, and I've heard this thing called a Doric. It's not. It's from the similar era, though. You can see that it's primarily square in profile like that, but then the edges are knocked off, so it actually has 8 sides. This is, we also call it a stenographer pen. I don't remember what the exact nomenclature of it was, but this one is marked, as you can see here. It just says, instead of saying Wahl Eversharp or just Wahl, this one says only Eversharp. And this one's a slightly different pen. It's very thin, obviously. It has a very thin nib, and it's fairly rigid, which I think if you're a stenographer would probably be a useful thing. And it's interesting because it is a bulb filler. And by that I mean you remove the blind cap, and then when you put this down in the ink, you squeeze this and you let it go, and it sucks up a small amount of ink. You do that a couple of times and it completely fills this barrel. This barrel, when it was new, was transparent. Now it's very ambered. I can see a little bit of light coming through it, but you probably can't. But in its day, you would have been able to see the amount of ink that fills it up. The same is true for the Dorics. These vac-fill Dorics. This is, again, it looks like solid black to you, but I can see a little bit of the light. It's actually striated on a biased angle here, where you can actually see through the barrel, and I can see a little bit, but it's very, again, very ambered and no longer transparent. And then this is the matching pencil to go with the stenographer pen. Now, Wahl Eversharp, although it was very successful, obviously, because it became one of the big 4, by 1957, and as all pen companies were floundering at the time because of the advent of the ballpoint, Eversharp actually came out with a version of the ballpoint. I think they call it the CA or something like that. But it flopped terribly. I don't think it was properly machined or created, and it just didn't perform well enough to compete with the ballpoint offerings from other companies. Schaefer and Parker survived the ballpoint advent, but Waterman and Wahl Eversharp and Conklin and a bunch of others did not. They did not live through to see the other side of the 1950s. In fact, in 1957, Parker bought out all of the writing instrument portions of the Eversharp company, and Parker made Eversharp into their cheaper brand before they phased it out completely, so that it disappeared. It died. Until a gentleman who is an avid fountain pen enthusiast, Sid Saperstein, revived the brands a few years back. And what Sid did is I think he began making Skylines. Now, I have handled one of the modern Skylines from Sid's company, the Wahl Eversharp company, which is now part of the Pen family, along with ASC with the Armando Simoni Club. Now, the Armando Simoni Club, of course, is made in Italy, as are, I believe, some, if not all, of the Wahl Eversharp pens. And I believe that Sid has now turned over control of the Wahl Eversharp brand to the Pen family, and so now they're being sold alongside with the ASC pens like the Bologna Extra and the other pens being made by them, which are fabulous pens, by the way. For example, I have here an ASC Bologna Extra in the Arco Verde, which is a stunning pen, and you can see some of the similarities here. They are intentional to be along with both Omas and Eversharp, in that it's got the roller clip, which you can see on this very early Wahl pen, and the seal, which is the warranty seal, which you saw on the Doric here, which is down above the clip here and then below the clip on the green one. And obviously it's below the clip on this big beast. The other pen that, let me finish talking about the modern Skylines. They are very similar in shape and size. They are also beautifully balanced. They do all the things. They post deeply. They sit nicely in the hand. The difference is they are not lever fillers. Oops. Oh, I dropped it. Not a good thing to do with one of these old pens. No cracks. It looks like it survived the fall. And luckily it didn't go nib down, right? But they are made out of different materials, acrylics and metals. The one I handled was a solid aluminum one. I've also handled a plastic one, but that was at a pen show. I did have the opportunity to meet Sid Saperstein at the San Francisco pen show a couple of years back. And he showed me a couple of his pens were rather stunning. Anyway, but the modern version of the Skylines are not lever fillers. They are cartridge converter fillers. You unscrew the barrel and you put the cartridge or converter in it. So it's a little more modern in that way. The other pen that they are known for is the Decoband. Now, Decoband was a reference to a design feature on the pens, which was basically a broad band. I mean, I suppose when we're talking about Art Deco, I mean, nothing says Art Deco to me more than a Doric does. But the Decoband, I suppose, on this pen would be this. But there was a particular pen that got to be known as the Decoband, which was more of a flat-topped pen, but it was a much thicker pen, much larger, and then it had a very wide band on the bottom of the cap. And they were made out of celluloid mostly. They were called, they were given the nickname of the Decoband. Well, when Sid Saperstein revived the company, he came out with a pen called the Decoband. Now, when they first came out, they came in a very large piano lacquer box. You've seen, if you've been watching videos of people who review pens, you will have seen the Pen Habit and other people review with the very large piano lacquer box and all of that. This is one of the more modern ones under the Pen family umbrella. But you can see it still says Wahl Eversharp. But this pen is identical to the box that my Arco came in. And the pen, I just rested it here. And if I can get this out of here, it comes in this clamshell. And pull it out here. The pen came to me, and now the plastic has over time become smoky, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's from off-gassing of the celluloid. But anyway, it comes like this with the pen lodged in there safely to keep it from hitting anything. Very nicely protected. This is magnetic. There are magnets in the top and bottom of this, so it snaps together. And then there's the pen bed, and there's just a little booklet about the pen, and then it says right here, you know, hello friend, activate your warranty and whatnot. I picked this one up at a good deal from a particular company, and sadly, although it is a gorgeous pen, this one is made out of what is called seaweed celluloid. And I've left the little dongle on there because I'm sending this pen back, and I will let you know why in a moment. But again, it has that beautiful band here, which they call the Decoband. That's got the roller clip, and it's got the seal for warrant that says that it's a warranted pen. Anyway, but this one is a pneumatic filler, and by pneumatic, I'll show you on the Arco here, and you'll see that these are very similar. The nibs are similar. They're made very similarly. They both have ebonite feeds. It's a split ebonite feed. Design, of course, is different. They're about the same girth and all of that. The Decoband's a little shorter, but the nibs are the same, although they're laser etched differently for the two different companies. But the way that they work is that you unscrew the blind cap, and it takes a few turns. There we go. And then what you do is you draw this back, and it's very smooth. There's rubber seals in there that are lubricated. And then you can see, maybe you can't see, I don't know if this is going to focus, but there's a little hole there in the end of the blind cap that you cover with your finger. And as you press down, it creates pressure inside the barrel that squeezes the rubber sac. And then when you take your finger off, it releases that pressure, and that sac opens up again, and it sucks ink up into it. And that's actually a rather old type. It's Chilton did it, a century ago, so it's nothing new. But there aren't very many pens today that do that. So you have the beautiful ASE that does that, and the very beautiful Decoband. However, this one's broken. I can't even unscrew the blind cap on this one now. One of the things that's kind of a problem with this particular design is that cap is very, very tiny. It's just this little black portion here. If I get a rubber gripper on it, I can twist it, and it takes a lot of force. And the booklet says only 3 turns to get it loose. That may be, I can't really tell, because this one, I can't pull it out. Listen to this. That's as far as I can get it to go. And it came to me this way. It came to me broken, and it's too bad. I've reached out to the Pen family about it. I haven't heard back from them, but the retailer I purchased it from did get back to me straight away, and I'm returning it because they don't have another one like it. This is the only one they had on hand, and so unfortunately, this is the first pen I'm ever having to return, sadly. But it's broken, and I, you know, as expensive as these pens are, they must work. But this one doesn't, sadly. Yes, I mean, look how beautiful it is. I mean, it just screams, fill me up and write with me. But I can't. The filling mechanism just doesn't work. Oh, and there was another reason that I wasn't really happy with this one, and you probably won't be able to see it. See if I can get some white behind it. You see the end of the feed there? Right there? It's not touching the nib at all. And then there's a white spot between those 2 pieces of the feed. You can see that little flash of white as I rotate it a little bit, right there above. It's because this has got a 2-piece feed. It's got this finned part, and then there's another part up here, and they're not touching each other. There's a gap. That may not be a problem, but where the feed doesn't touch the nib, that is a problem. It can cause poor flow characteristics. I don't know if it will, because again, I can't write with this one because it's broken. Anyway, Wahl Eversharp are fantastic pens. They write beautifully. They have a wide range of nibs, but some of the best flex nibs I own are Wahl Eversharp nibs. Wahl made pens from safety pens all the way through to more modern pens that were similar to the Parker 51. The Skyline is a fantastic pen. The Dorics are some of the most beautiful pens that were ever made. And then they have interesting ones like this Secretary or whatever you want to call it, pen. I don't remember what the nomenclature of it is. Anyway, but from, you know, basically 1915 on through to the early 50s, Wahl Eversharp was a mover and shaker in the fountain pen world, and it's worth it to find one, or in my case, 10. And the modern versions of the pens are great. If you don't want to mess around with these older pens, but you like the design of them, which is a fantastic design. There's nothing quite like this Skyline. It's just fantastic. You can get a modern one, and they are great pens. So you have the option out there today. Anyway, so with that, I'm going to wrap it up, and I hope you have a good evening.